thank you, really, all of you, for being here. I couldn't be more delighted to see all of you. It's a little jarring, I have to say, to see family and personal friends and colleagues from a different chapter of my professional life and current colleagues, community partners, university leaders, all together in one place. I'm delighted to see you all meeting and mingling with each other, and I'm really hoping you're not talking about me. This is fantastic. I really do want to be somewhat brief because I do want you to have time to stay and to meet each other. It's one of the things that I think is the most important thing to do. That's why it says something on the front of the program about leading together. It's because I believe that when we build these kinds of connections, we're better as a community. But I cannot pass up this opportunity to try to paint a picture for you of just why I am so proud of this school and why I am so optimistic about our future and why I know I have the best job in the world. Many of you have been here often, and some of you are walking into this building for one of the first times. So I want to start by shining a bright light, if you will, on some of our exceptional faculty, the scholars who make this school vibrant, who animate the work of this school. I understand, and I was just talking to some of my colleagues about this, I understand this is a dangerous thing to do because I can't possibly recognize all of the remarkable faculty that are here. So I essentially randomly picked some faculty, because even though what I'm going to tell you now I think is exceptional, with all due respect to the colleagues here, my faculty colleagues here, you're not exceptional among your peers. You all here will hear about people who reflect an exceptionally highly accomplished group of people. Dr. Jody Sanford a few years ago wrote a book on public policy, and we're gonna applaud all these people when I'm done, so just wrote a book a few years ago about public policy implementation, and I watched her stand at this podium and tell a group of students and community partners, we wrote this together. This research-based work is based on all of the things I have learned from you. Jody didn't just publish this book and then leave it at that. She used that book and that research-based learning to turn it into what we now call the Future Services Institute, which is a whole portfolio of community-based work that is changing communities, counties, and tribal reservations across this state so that they can better serve the people who live there. That work has also been translated into a human services leadership certificate program so that mid-career students can come here and learn how to do this themselves. And we launched that program this month, and it is our largest certificate program to date. Dr. Sam Myers is in the midst of planning the fifth, right up there, the fifth World Conference on Racial and Ethnic Economic Inequality. That conference will be held in Brazil. That's the Humphrey School in Brazil next year in 2018. Makes my knees weak. There's a lot of planning that needs to be done. That conference has been held in the past in South Africa, in Australia, and here in Minnesota. Now we will be in Brazil, and I couldn't be prouder. Dr. Anu Ramaswamy is a research scientist and faculty member here. She just recently published her groundbreaking work in the publication Nature. Those of us who aren't scientists might not know that that is a really big deal. And when I talked to Eric Jolly, who I believe could not be here tonight, about this, he said that same thing. You know, Laura, that is a really big deal. What Anu does is study how cities can increase their level of livability by thinking about air quality, renewable resources, and building economic vibrancy at the same time she's talking about environmental innovations. Once she's published this research, we have found that she's in incredibly high demand at the United Nations, and just this week we sat down with her to figure out how she can balance her deep commitment to students here, even as she's being drawn all over the world to talk about her research. Dr. Yingling Fan is a McKnight University land grant professor, which is a rare honor given to junior faculty at the University of Minnesota to recognize the most promising faculty in their fields. Yingling Fan is here. She studies everything from transit to livable cities and happy cities because her premise, research-based premise, is that people who are happy in their environment make better decisions for themselves and for their community. What I particularly love about Yingling Fan is that she is at home in North Minneapolis, working hand in glove with communities there as she is bringing groups of students from the Humphrey School to cities that she grew up in her home country of China. Jessica Stanton joined us recently, not as a brand new professor, but as an experienced professor from the University of Pennsylvania. We stole her. And just this month, we learned that Jessica received a national honor, a national book award for her publication, and let me read this. The publication is Violence and Restraint in Civil War, Civilian Targeting in the Shadow of International Law. Jessica will lead the Humphrey School's partnership with the Peace Research Institute in Oslo, Norway, that will bring a lot of our faculty together with people in Norway to think about peace and security in fragile states, particularly in North and East Africa. Many of you know Dr. Larry Jacobs. You know the Policy Fellows Program. On your program, I know this because I've looked at it a lot, on the right-hand side of your program, it will say something about the Bohe Legislative Leadership Institute. And he leads that program with his team of faculty. What you may not know, and many of you I hope actually don't know because I hope we keep kind of a lid on this. Every January, that's for Lori Sturdamont that I said that. Every January, we open our doors to every single member of the Minnesota legislature to come into this place, and then we close the doors to observers, to the media, to outsiders, and invite this group of legislators to start each session in a nonpartisan way, talking about leadership and excellent public policy implementation. Now, we all might, isn't that a nice thing? We all might have opinions about how successful that's been, but we're going to keep at it. And every year we will do that. And then there is our remarkable Associate Dean, our new Associate Dean. I can tell you, for those of you who knew the former Associate Dean, she is much more organized than I was. Carissa Slaughterback, if you could just wave, Carissa. I couldn't be happier than to work with Carissa, but I want to also say something about her scholarship, because although she is too also new in her role, she has been here as a faculty member since 2004, and she did something that I think is truly innovative within the university and continues to this day, even though she's not as closely involved. She founded something called the Resilient Communities Project, and what it does is it identifies one community and says, let's talk about all the stuff, all the challenges you have, all the public policy planning issues you have. Let's make a big old laundry list, I'm kind of simplifying it, and then let's go and look at the vast resources across the university, the classes, the doctoral students, the faculty research, and let's bring it all to bear in a coordinated way on this community. And they have made a huge difference for communities around the state every year that they have done that. That's a sampling. That is just a sampling, folks, and there's a whole lot more people here. These are the people who animate this school, and they are supported in so many ways by an incredibly talented cadre of staff who wrangle, who cajole, who push, who bring their statistical and technical expertise to bear on all of the work that we do here as well. Far too many to name. But if you are a faculty member or a staff member here at the Humphrey School right now, could you just wave your hand high so we can recognize you? When I talk about leading together, I think about this group of faculty and staff. We're going to talk about students in a minute. But it makes my role as dean one of enabling. I really see my leadership responsibility as supporting, shining a bright light on these inspired professionals. I'm prepared to broaden the work when I think we need to broaden it, narrow it when I think we need to narrow it. But mostly I want to be an ambassador to amplify these efforts because they're doing remarkable work. I'm sometimes asked, isn't it kind of broad? You know, does the Humphrey School do everything? Your social policy and city planning and transit and human service redesign. And I say, yeah, but that's the work of public affairs. The work of public life is broad. So then, what is it that makes us one? What brings us together as a school? And I have no concerns about being too broad there. I believe our work is animated by a core group of themes, a core set of skills and theories and practice that infuse everything we do, whether it's our curriculum, our research, our outreach, our partnership development. And hear this, you'll hear me say this a lot. It will be a part of our curriculum review. It will be a part of our soon-to-be-launched campaign. Our work strengthens democracy and civic life in a changing world and in a changing America. And our work supports hope, opportunity, equity, and justice in a changing world and a changing America. That's what we do. The implementation of it may look very broad, but the core themes underpinning it are very consistent. And our work brings hundreds of students into this school every year. It brings tens of thousands, and I'm not joking, we've done the math, tens of thousands of community partners into this school every year. And every year, scores of our faculty, in partnership with our students, are out in the community, working hand in glove with partners to better understand, deepen, and implement excellent public policy, planning, and practices. This is the work of public affairs. And when we think about it this way, this is the work of public affairs, Humphrey style. So what about these students? We have some of them, many of them with us tonight. And they're our current students. We have 4,000 alums. We have students who come into this school because they want to change the world. They really do. And they spend 2 or so years here, our doctoral students spend more, working with this committed group of faculty and staff, working with each other, building their skills, and then they leave and go out into the world, and that too is the work of public affairs. And let me just shine a bright light on some of our alumni. And again, just like I said with the faculty, I mean no disrespect when I say you are not exceptional if you're up on this screen just now. What I mean is you are exceptional, but not among your peers. We have an amazing cadre of alums who leave here. Let me just tell you about a few, and then I'll wrap up, because I could go on all night. Mai Kao Hang, many of you know her as the CEO of the Wilder Foundation. She's an alum. We are so proud that she's also now teaching with us. Minneapolis St. Paul Business Magazine identified Mai Kao as one of the most promising and admired CEOs in this market. Jim Nobles is our legislative auditor. If you are here tonight, he's probably been the legislative auditor for most of your adult life, I'm just saying. He's remarkable. The Office of the Legislative Auditor has hired a number of Humphrey alums. They do remarkable work and study everything from road easements to charter schools. But I was thinking, I can't remember a time when Jim Nobles wasn't the auditor. So I went online and I looked this up. You got to hear this. He was chosen to serve a 6-year term as auditor by the Legislative Audit Commission in 1983. He was reappointed to subsequent 6-year terms in 89, 95, 2001, 2007, and 2013. We're very proud of Jim Nobles. Anita Patel, who is here tonight, is the the Director of Leadership Programs for the Bush Foundation. Many of us know that the Bush Fellows in this community, who are now under Anita's oversight, are transforming our community. People who go through the Bush Fellowship Program really do remarkable things. I know we have former Bush Fellows here tonight. Anita's here tonight, as is her husband, Steve, and let me just say that they met here at the Humphrey School a lot of years ago, so we're glad you're here. Danielle Grant, before she became the CEO of Achieve Minneapolis, she served the Minneapolis School District for a number of years. She's an enrolled member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Ojibwe. She's been named the Outstanding American Indian Administrator by the Minnesota Indian Education Association. Tim Marks, I just saw him. Tim Marks is here tonight, the CEO of Catholic Charities. We are so fortunate he came back to this community after leaving the state for a while. Catholic Charities is a venerable organization serving some of the most in need members of our community. I don't want to say more about Tim. I want to drive you to their website where he has posted things that he has written. And just last night I read a post by Tim called Staying True to Our Values When They Are Challenged. And it's one of the most beautiful things I've read recently, and I encourage you to go online and read it. Akua Ellis, who I believe is here tonight, is recently hired by Catholic Charities. So another alum heading that way. There she is, sitting right over there, who was a Crucell Fellow when she was here, and I'm sure she will bring her same committed passion to social justice with her to Catholic Charities work as she did here. Frank Altman graduated a long time ago and founded and leads a program called Community Reinvestment Fund USA. It's located here. It's a national program serving under-resourced communities around the country. And I just want to pull something from a fact sheet. John Bryson introduced me to Frank not long ago, and I was wowed by this, so I looked this up just for context. This organization that this alum founded has leveraged $2.1 billion in financing to go to under-resourced communities, providing 1,600 loans to small businesses in those communities, building 19,000 affordable housing units, creating 79,000 jobs, and impacting 1.7 million people. Amina Safai graduated last year. I'm a bit at a loss for words when I think of Amina. Her peers here almost unanimously voted her their commencement speaker last year, and those of us who had to follow Amina on the stage, including myself and Senator Amy Klobuchar, both thought, oh, that's really bad because she's a tough act to follow. All 4'10" of her. She's amazing. And while Amina was here, she taught us so much about grit and bravery and kindness and compassion. This is a French-Syrian American. Imagine that, a French-Syrian. Part of her family is in Syria, part of her family's in France, and she was here over the last 3 years. Put that in context. Now think about this. Her mother died in Paris while she was a student here, and she made the very difficult decision that she didn't feel she could go to the funeral and get back here safely, so she stayed to continue her studies. I know she will bring that same level of grit and heart to her work in Washington. Bud Philbrook founded Global Volunteers. If you don't know the organization, look it up. Again, it's right here in this community, but has an international impact. Bud Philbrook is amazing. And let me just give you a sense of this. In 3 decades of running Global Volunteers, this organization has coordinated the work of 33,000 volunteers in 34 countries on 6 continents. I have a very good friend. I went through a doctoral program with her together a lot of years ago, and every year she uses her own money and her own vacation time. She's a professor in Colorado, and she said, I don't want any other kind of vacation anymore. I only want to be with Global Volunteers in the world. 2 more, and then we're going to stop, I promise you. Hanife Sakisi is a student of mine here. She was born in rural Turkey. When she graduated from the Humphrey School, she went on and completed her PhD. And the first time she did a final paper presentation, she's a great scholar, brilliant scholar, and I was expecting this brilliant presentation. And the first thing that came up on her PowerPoint slides was this picture of a woman, a peasant woman is what Hanife said, in very rural Turkey, in front of a shack with corrugated steel roof. This woman was smiling, had not many teeth, and Hanife said, this is my mother. She never went to school. And I just thought, and here's this woman who now has a PhD and is now living in Africa, serving the United Nations and bringing her formidable program evaluation skill to bear on some of the United Nations' most important work in that country. And then I had to add a current student, mostly just because this is awesome, and some people here know Chuck Aoki. Chuck is a second-year student, having spent the summer in Washington at NDI. And here's why I had to end with Chuck, because I'm still kind of starstruck that we have a Paralympian in our midst. Chuck is a wheelchair rugby player. He is a fierce competitor. If you really want to see something like that will have you on the edge of your seat, Google the final wheelchair rugby game from Rio last year. It's insane. I was glad to see him back in one piece. Unfortunately, he took silver, not gold, and he's still kind of mad about it. I would be too. If you are an alum or a student of the Humphrey School, will you please raise your hand high so we can recognize you? As Jack said, 40 years ago this month, this school, formerly program then school, was officially named the Hubert H. Humphrey School of Public Affairs. There are people here tonight who graduated before it was that, and I don't want the timeline in the program in any way to suggest that nothing existed before that, but it was in September of 1977 that this school was named in honor of somebody that many of you here knew and who was a great public leader. I'm honored to lead a school that is a living memorial to this man. One of the things that Hubert Humphrey said that I particularly love, he was a very vociferous guy, and there is no shortage of Humphrey quotes running around, but this is one of my favorites. He said, leadership, I would like to think he was thinking about leadership of the school, is a relentless and prudent and probing concern for the future. Relentless, prudent, and probing concern for the future. I believe for me that a solid understanding of our past provides the essential groundwork for us to think about our future. And with all due respect to Hubert Humphrey, Vice President, Senator, and Minneapolis Mayor Hubert Humphrey, I would like to add to that it's a prudent, probing, and relentless concern for the future. I also believe that leadership of this school requires a relentless drive towards excellence and justice in our pursuit of the common good. And that's what I intend to do. Thanks very much for being here.